Dublin, August 5th, 1847. The city awakens to the toll of cathedral bells. Dublineers from every level of society, from shoeless boys to princes of the church, course through the streets, walking toward St. Mary's. Men sent as representatives from the furthest towns of Ireland pat their pockets, ensuring they have matches to light a votive candle. They're all going to see a man buried, and not just any man. 3 days before, in a year when so many had died without coffins, thousands of people had watched one be carried through the streets. Inside was the liberator, Daniel O'Connell. Dublineers wept for the man who'd fought for their religious freedom, the first Irish Catholic to sit in Parliament, and the man who had come closer than anyone to repealing the Act of Union tying Ireland to Great Britain, a crusader who had denounced anti-Semitism and slavery, and a man who in death had their forgiveness, for in their greatest hour of need, he had failed them. In 1847, the British government caved on its policy of trying to morally reform Ireland via food aid. The Prime Minister, Lord John Russell, recognized the failure of Trevelyan's aid program and turned to directly feeding 3 million in Ireland via soup kitchens and workhouses. Private charities joined in, with Irish Quakers trying to fill the gap. Donations to the British Relief Association came from as far away as India, Mexico, and Venezuela. Queen Victoria sent public letters asking the British to donate to relief organizations and contributed £2,000. And large donations came from Pope Pius IX and the Sultan of Turkey, who had also sent ships full of supplies. It was not enough, but it did save many lives. The 1847 harvest was a healthy one, with no signs of blight, yet it was only a quarter the size of a normal harvest. Desperate farmers had eaten their seed potatoes in 1846, leaving few to plant for next year's crop. So though free of blight, Ireland still needed aid. But British relief started to run into popular opposition. Homeless Irish refugees were increasingly showing up in British cities, stranded while trying to make it to a port. And a bubble in railroad construction had recently burst, sending Britain into recession. And suddenly, a public who viewed Ireland with deep prejudice, but some sympathy, began to sour. The British press portrayed the Irish as freeloaders. Aid was scaled back and began to disappear. And as that happened, an 1847 poor law meant to encourage landowners to act responsibly backfired. The law charged a tax on landowners that rose along with the rate of poverty among their tenants. To keep their taxes down, it was thought, the landowners would ensure that their tenants weren't living in poverty. Instead, you would be shocked to learn the landowners found a loophole. Mass evictions. They didn't have a poor rate after all, if they didn't have tenants. With the economy collapsing, and many tenants too weak to work, landowners had ample excuse to bring in the constables with their sledgehammers and torches, running families out of their homes by bringing the walls down around them. Whole towns turned out on the road, took to living in ditches or flooding into cities to fill workhouses and beg on the streets. But this incredible cruelty triggered repercussions. The midnight legislators, militias like the Molly Maguires, ambushed landlords, police, and even clergy on the road. 4 Irish landowners were assassinated that year. And in addition, the poor law had another disturbing component. To ensure that only the poorest could claim for relief, only those with less than a quarter acre of farmland could receive food aid. Therefore, many small farmers had to give up all they had to survive. Ireland needed a champion, an advocate. Yet despite their great need, Irish political leaders were largely absent from the crisis. Daniel O'Connell, who had ran the Repeal Association, Ireland's largest political bloc, had been outspoken, at first. But in 1845 and 1846, he'd failed to recognize the scale of the disaster. Potato failures and food scarcity were nothing new to Ireland, and he believed it would go away. His focus remained on deposing Prime Minister Peel. O'Connell saw him as pro-Protestant, anti-Catholic, and anti-Irish. Therefore, O'Connell led the Irish parliamentary bloc in ousting Peel and served as the kingmakers in bringing the liberal Whigs to power. O'Connell was playing the long game. He saw the Whigs as willing to compromise on Ireland, and in helping them form a government, he hoped to extract promises to win the Irish greater freedom. So he stayed quiet, only speaking up in private as the starvation deepened. He tried to parlay this Whig alliance into something useful, even voting for harsh crime bills that increased colonist pressure on Ireland. By the time he realized that he'd been played, it was too late. Members of his Repeal Association were up in arms over his support of the Whigs and splitting into factions. On one side were the Old Irelanders. They followed O'Connell's principles of nonviolence. On the other, the Young Irelanders. While they didn't advocate rebellion, they believed taking it off the table was a strategic mistake. To force concessions out of London, they argued, they had to at least preserve the threat of taking up the gun. So in 1846, O'Connell had finally had enough. Anxious to consolidate his hold over the movement, he forced a crisis in the Repeal Association by calling a vote. To remain part of the association, all members must pledge to forswear violence. The Young Irelanders walked out, splitting Ireland's largest political organization. Over the coming year, Old and Young Ireland were at each other's throats. One Old Irelander, totally adhering to his non-violent roots, set his dogs on a political opponent, and Old Irelanders interrupted Young Ireland meetings, in one instance smashing in the doors with a battering ram. Ireland was experiencing its greatest existential crisis of the 19th century, and its most powerful political organization was wasting its focus on an internecine feud. The results proved tragic for Young Ireland. Unfettered from the moderates in the Repeal Association, they increasingly talked of rebellion. And to their surprise, the wheels of rebellion started to turn faster than they'd thought. An uprising, unthinkable in 1847, started to seem inevitable. Scarcity and political disaffection across Europe boiled over in 1848, kicking off a series of bloodless revolutions. The French overthrew their king, Denmark ended in absolute monarchy, Austria abolished serfdom, and the Netherlands instituted democracy. Demonstrations surged through the streets of a dozen major cities, and a heady feeling swept through the Young Irelanders. Might it be possible? They traveled to Paris to view the new government, and brought back a new flag. A tricolor, like the French one, but with Catholic green and Protestant orange, united by a white field of truce. And things started to happen. When a prominent Young Ireland leader got arrested, a mob broke into jail to save him. Armed men flocked to their cause, and it seemed, for a moment, that the whole nation might rise and throw off the British yoke. But the Young Irelanders had no plan, and the British absolutely did. Soldiers and police scooped up the leaders, imprisoning or transporting them to faraway prison colonies. In fact, the only confrontation was a skirmish so minor, it was known as the Battle of Mrs. McCormick's Cabbage Patch. The Young Irelander rebellion failed because its leaders failed to grasp a basic concept. Ireland was too enfeebled by famine and disease to rise, too devoid of hope. And in autumn of 1848, blight returned. It wasn't until the end of 1849 that Ireland saw a healthy harvest. But by that time, at least 1 million people were dead, and up to 2 million immigrated. The Great Famine proved a landmark in the history of Ireland. One of the most famous mass migrations in history, it spread the Irish people and their culture across the globe. Escapees from the Young Ireland Rebellion would flee to the United States and form the Fenian Brotherhood, a revolutionary organization that would carry Irish republicanism back to the homeland. The famine itself permanently marred relations with Great Britain, ensuring that moderates like Daniel O'Connell would never get the same kind of traction. Future revolutionaries called on the memory of Black 47, and it might even be argued that the famine set the island, inexorably, on the path to the Easter Rising. The Ireland that Whigs like Secretary Trevelyan wanted to create, one given over to larger-scale farming, never permanently came to pass. In fact, the failure of Russell's free trade policies proved so total, the Whigs lost power in 1852 and dissolved 7 years later. Ireland, at least, did break its reliance on the potato. 1 million people had died due to prejudiced men writing bad policy. A stark warning of what happens when poor relief becomes a tool for political ideology. Trevelyan, for his part, went on to reform the civil service and serve in India. And in 1848, as Irish women and children died homeless along the road, the Queen knighted Trevelyan for his service to the government. They would later grant him a baronet. Sorry folks, sometimes bad men die in their sleep. But there's another legacy of the famine, because the Irish remember when they weren't the ones far away and forgotten. Their suffering no more than a line in a newspaper. Today, the Republic of Ireland is a world leader in international food and development aid. In 2018, it provided assistance to over 130 countries, with 80% of its relief efforts going to sub-Saharan Africa. And in 2019, they will spend 817 million euros helping the world's poorest. In a world where 1 in 8 people are malnourished, Ireland has turned its deepest psychological scar into a call to action. And if after hearing this tale you'd like to help them, check out the links in the description below and see how you can.
So you got knighted. Oh yeah, because that's going to make me like the monarchy more, right? Alright, Matt, it's time for you to give us a little bit of a lesson. I'm going to give you a call on Discord. Oh, not video, sorry, my bad. Leave call. Normal call. Wow.
Game?
Yep. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I can hear you. So, they mentioned Easter Rising. I'm pretty sure you don't know what that is.
No clue.
Okay. One of the oldest sayings in the world is, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, correct?
Mm-hmm.
In the event of World War I, Ireland looked to the war and saw England was getting its ass kicked in France. They were fighting like hell and they were barely winning. Ireland allied with Germany.
I see.
Because our thought process was, if you give us weapons, if you give us ammunition, we will fight them and make them have to fight a war on two fronts. We will win our freedom, and you will defeat England. Great plan. You can imagine that went off well. That didn't go too well. Because Germany got caught making weapons to Ireland. I don't have 10 minutes. It would take 30 minutes to explain the whole thing. But in short, 1916, on Easter Sunday, Easter Monday actually, they rose up against England for the last time. This is the revolution they spoke of. When they thought of it, they thought of all those revolutions and the dead revolution, the dead people under the crown. And they said, no more. We are not living under your rule anymore. And they revolted against them.
That sounds reasonable.
The article, the Declaration of Freedom by Ireland. And it's considered to equal it with the Declaration of Independence for Ireland.
That
They
sounds
spoke
reasonable.
it out loud as they took different places in Dublin. It failed, like all the other rebellions. But what it did this time was, the people saw how England treated those who were captured. They were shot, killed, and thrown in a mass grave. And Ireland got pissed. When they couldn't unite Ireland, the death did.
That's just...
One of them, he couldn't walk. His leg was broken. He couldn't walk. What did Ireland do? What did England do? Dragged him to a chair and then shot him in the head. Tying him to the chair.
That's fucking war crimes and a half. That's fucked up.
And this led to revolt. This led to one of the biggest and most bloodiest places in the world for a long time. Northern Ireland. Most people don't realize Northern Ireland for a long time was. The reason why Brexit is so controversial right now is Northern Ireland. It's the border. The reason they fought for almost 60 to 70, 80 years was because of that border. A hard border is a no-no there. The border between Northern Ireland and Ireland has always been open and free. Right now, they're worried about they might start another 80 years of violence. You thought what ISIS did to the world was bad. You haven't seen anything until you've seen the IRA, the Irish Republic Army. We had flamethrowers. We had nail bombs. Bombs which are basically jar of nail with explosive put on the cap.
That's basically a Claymore mine.
We shredded people. We killed MI6, the special intelligence agencies. We sent them back to England in a body bag. For years, Ireland fought and died to unite Ireland, and they still been fighting. So let's wonder if Ireland ever recovered from the famine. No. If you take Northern Ireland population, to 6.2 million people.
Wow.
That's not a lot. That's a lot missing. That's 1.8 million people missing.
Wow.
They never recovered, and they said they might not recover for 100 years, 100 years.
Wow.
And it's because they fought for so long. If anyone in the chat, if you watch part 4 and a lot of those names sound familiar, the Bowery Boys, the Dead Rabbit, the Native, the Catholic priests who would fight, that's because they made a movie off it. It's called The Gangs of New York. The 5 points is actually from that movie. And a lot of the events they talk about here was in the movie. The only difference is they moved it to the World War I era when it was actually 20, 30 years earlier, not in the World War I Civil War era.
I see, yeah. Wow.
But like, most people don't realize, Ireland built New York City. Fun fact, his exact words when he said we will burn New York to the ground were, we will Moscow, New York City. The reference why that's considered burning to the ground for those who don't know, when the Russians fought Napoleon, they burnt Moscow to the ground. They left nothing for Napoleon.
Yup.
Napoleon captured a burnt down city. Good the Russians were not willing to give up that city.
Well, Slavs are known for their,
That's where the whole thought process is. They touch one of our citizens, we'll burn the city.
Yeah.
And Ireland was very brutal with that. Ireland has always been very communal. That's one of the things that they stay together. That's why the American way is such a big thing. That divided family. Family is a very big part of the Irish life. Families, communities, and the Catholic religion. It's insane when you think of it. You want to hear the most insane thing?
Go for it.
We do this because we want to show people history. But those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, right?
Pretty much.
100 years later, they did the same thing again to another country.
Doesn't surprise me. Which country was it?
India.
Yeah, well, that's what they got a lot of. Yeah.
In 1940, they committed a famine in India, which you can basically take the entire story, replace Ireland with India, replace the Irish with Indians. Congratulations, you got the same damn thing.
You know what? I've lost pretty much so much respect for the British monarchy and the empire, like for what they've been doing the past few hundred years. It's just atrocious.
Here's the thing. They don't want to talk about that. The United States government doesn't want to talk about that because that's not a history they want to tell people. They want to act like England was a great country. They were brutal dictators.
Yeah.
They raped them to
Yeah.
Scotland. Scotland's another country that's suffering under them. They may be part of the UK, but most people who live in Scotland will tell you they raped pillaged and murdered them for 1,000 years.
Yeah, it's atrocious. I knew about Scotland, but then now I found out about the Irish, and I knew nothing about it. It's like, look at, and they also did, horrible things to Africa as well. Like, when you look at recent history, we're not talking thousands of years ago. We're talking within the last few hundred. The amount of it's wrong.
And notice the one thing, and this is something people notice when they talk about the American Wake video. You saw a lot of the same issues they faced, we face today.
Oh yeah.
Like, American immigration is an issue, and that's the one thing Trump wants to fight. That happened 100 years ago. That happened in 150 years ago. It happened so many years ago. The same thing. The American had an issue with immigration and with the Catholic religion. Whether we have an issue today, Muslims and immigration.
And what we had about like 10, 15 years ago was immigration from Asia, and what there was there 30, 40 years ago was immigration from Europe. So it's just a cycle. It repeats itself through a rhyme. It's a different religion from a different part of the globe, and it just follows this endless cycle. And the funny part, it's just,
And
yeah.
I understand people watching this might say this isn't fun. History is not always going to be fun, but that's the point. If you don't learn from history, you will never learn from mistakes.
Well, that's
We
why.
made mistakes because people up there, when I say up there, I mean the people who run this world, they don't learn from the mistakes. They don't learn from the fact that, like, England did the same thing twice with the same exact mistakes.
Yeah, well,
And here's the funny thing. Remember how it caused internal strife?
Hmm.
There was also religious issues within India too. Also came out of that, which was Muslims versus Hindu. And that's another thing. It's like you do the exact same thing. Replace two different religions, and like you replace different names and it's the same story. Except in another country almost 100 years later.
yeah,
And they never learn.
we're in an
I showed this to my boss's family. They were appalled and I said, wait, this is the same thing happened in India. I'm like, yeah, they have never learned. Most people don't realize it.
Riz is saying we're in an interesting generation since the internet gives common people access to more knowledge and connections across the world than ever before, and that's true. And look what they're trying to do to the internet. They're trying to put whatever that article is for Europe and censor the internet. When you censor one thing, they'll start censoring everything. And that's part of the plan. Keep everyone in the dark. You pull the hood over their eyes and you can put in whatever laws you want. Censorship disguised as, freedom, but it's just dictatorial. It's there to take away information and freedom.
And a lot of these people, they say it's for our own security, it's for our own safety. And
It's not. It's just not.
and I don't remember the exact quote, but if you try to have security and freedom, you get none.
Well, I think the
Can't
quote
remember
was
what it
from one of
is.
the founding fathers. They said that if you're
Yeah,
willing to
and
trade
they said
freedom
the
for
exact same
security,
thing.
then you deserve
Cannot
neither.
have both. You cannot have both. You either have one or the other. If you try to have both, you have none.
Yeah.
And hey Jay, it's just the whole thing of,
Yeah.
and we watched this, and that's part of the Irish history is not a very colorful, good history. It's not a very happy history. You gotta understand, Ireland to this day is one of the largest people. My respect to Ireland goes to the fact that they suffered a scar so unbelievable. They used that scar to make sure other countries did not have to go through the same thing.
And that's a good thing. That's why I sort of clapped. It's that even though
It's
they're
like-
not the largest country or the big, economical power in the world, the difference they make in the world is so vast because of who
And-
they are.
it makes me personally ashamed of my own country. Because while my country started trying to build a military up and have the biggest military on earth, here's Ireland. We don't have a big military, but what we do, if we'll make sure this world is fed, we will try to feed the people who can't feed themselves. And they don't, and my country doesn't care much. They'll do this, oh, here's $1 million.
Well, those in power very rarely care. They just care about themselves. It's part of, unfortunately, part of human nature, and it's typically those types of people that want to become powerful and do end up influencing the world in a negative way. But fortunately, we got to see this, and I am fortunate to actually see this and learn a lot about history, and it's very eye-opening. I think it's good for everyone, so I'll try to edit it out and upload it, and hopefully it doesn't get taken down for copyright. Luckily, it is a original piece of work, so the only copyright issues I could see is possibly with the music. But if we edit that out, I'm sure it'll be perfectly fine, and I'm sure the creators wouldn't really mind because it's spreading education, and they get the money from it anyway, so it's fine by them, I think.
One of the things I think that is great about the talks and your opinion on the history, you're from Serbia, you moved to Australia, you have multiple cultures inside of you, and you understand the dark side of history.
Well, I know the dark side of history. I have a few war criminals in the family, so I I definitely know the dark side of history. That's for sure.
And I'm like Serbia. I've always had. I don't claim to know all of Serbian history, but I know they did not have. They're not considered like by most countries on earth. They look down upon Serbia because they're like it. Like most people think, oh, it's part of Russia. If you would ask anyone, they'll probably say it's part of Russia.
I mean, they're not entirely incorrect because a lot of Europe was sort of colonized up from the northern regions. And Serbs are really just like a bunch of Russians that back in the day did go south. But, you know, it's a little bit ignorant in today's day and age to think two separate countries are the same thing.
Vikings, which makes you part Viking.
What, the bloodshed and alcoholism didn't give it away? We're the Vikings that lived in cold environments, so the winter means nothing. So that's why we became the bears. We're massive bears. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's why you, like, Americans use the First Amendment at the cudgel, you use the winter at the cudgel.
It's like Americans have the right to bear arms. We have the right to the whole bear. All right, we're going to have to wrap it up here. Thank you for the talk. Thank you for the lesson. Thank you for the videos. They're awesome. I think I'm getting messages because I'm 10 minutes late. So we're going to wrap it up. Thanks for you guys for coming and enjoying the reactions. I will edit them out and post them. And let's do this again sometime. And let's revitalize the reaction channel with lots of fun, entertaining, and hopefully some informative content. So thanks for coming. I really do appreciate it.
Always check out the credit. They have good stuff there. They do history all the time. If anyone in the chat wants to learn about history, go to their channel. Because they will, if they have incorrect information, they'll come out with another video and say, here's things we may have gotten wrong or didn't tell you about. And that's what's amazing about it. Extra credit is, I love the channel because they're very informative.
Dude, have you realized this? They unsubscribed me from PewDiePie. They unsubscribed me.
Yeah. They're like, he actually has the top bot now. Okay.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I never they've unsubscribed me several times. That's some shifty shit. All right, I gotta wrap it up. I'm already late, but that's some shifty shit. All right, thanks for coming, guys. I'll catch you next time. Bye. Bye.